A once vibrant city skyline, now scarred by crumbling towers and the stench of despair hanging thick in the air. This isn't some dystopian movie. It's Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, South Africa, under the grip of hijacked buildings. And let me tell you straight up, this nightmare didn't just happen. It's a festering wound carved out by decades of ANC mismanagement, corruption rotting from the inside, and a betrayal of the promises made when the so-called freedom dawned. Today, I'm diving deep into this crisis, pulling back the curtain on the shocking truths from reports and investigations that scream for justice. Stick around, because what you're about to hear will shock you. It's the story of how South African cities were handed over to criminals on a silver platter, and how innocent lives, including those of hard-working minority white South Africans who've seen their properties stolen and dreams shattered, are paying the price. Let's start at the heart of it, where the rot began. Back in the late 1990s, right after the dawn of democracy, when the ANC took the reins, the floodgates opened. Under the new black-led government of the ANC, things exploded. Rapid urban migration hit like a tsunami. Johannesburg's inner-city population ballooned from 16,000 in 1993 to over 180,000 by 2003. People poured in, chasing jobs, chasing hope, but where was the housing? The ANC's grand plans focused on far-flung townships, ignoring the decaying heart of our cities. Property owners, many of them white South Africans who'd invested their lives' savings into these buildings, faced skyrocketing crime, plummeting rents, and a government that turned a blind eye. They abandoned ship, not out of choice, but because the system failed them. And into that vacuum, criminal syndicates slithered in, hijacking buildings left and right. By the mid-2000s, Johannesburg alone had around 200 of these hijacked buildings in its central business district alone, housing tens of thousands of people in appalling conditions. A 2008 report by the South African Foundation for Human Rights indicated that in downtown Johannesburg, up to 80% of properties in certain precincts were under some form of illegal occupation or control. This wasn't apartheid's doing anymore. This was ANC-era chaos, a direct product of policy gaps, municipal incompetence, and a housing backlog that ballooned to over 500,000 units in Joburg alone. Imagine being a white landlord, your family's legacy in bricks and mortar, only to watch it seized by thugs while the government dithers with endless waiting lists and corrupt officials pocket bribes to look the other way. Imagine the horror inside these hijacked hellholes, families crammed like sardines, dozens sharing a single floor with one broken toilet, no running water, electricity spliced illegally from the grid, sparking fires that devour lives. Garbage piles up, rats scurry, diseases like tuberculosis spread like wildfire, and the fires, oh the fires! Remember the 2023 Marshalltown blaze in Johannesburg? 77 souls lost, including children, in a building hijacked under the ANC's watch. That wasn't an accident. It was murder by neglect. These buildings become breeding grounds for drugs, prostitution, violence, syndicates raking in millions in illicit rent while the city loses over 1 billion rands a year in unpaid rates and services. In Joburg's Central District, rates collection is a pathetic 60%, far below the 95% target, starving our infrastructure. And who's paying? You and me, the law-abiding citizens, while corrupt ANC-linked officials tip off hijackers about raids or forge ownership papers for a cut. Investigations by Johannesburg's Group Forensics and Investigation Service have nailed police officers, housing department employees, public servants sworn to protect us, taking bribes to let this cancer spread. It's not just mismanagement, it's outright corruption, a betrayal that hits hardest on the vulnerable, including white minorities whose properties are looted, leaving them destitute in a country they built. Now let's name the players in this tragic farce. At the top, organized crime syndicates, often a toxic mix of South Africans and foreign nationals from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, and beyond, running sophisticated operations. Police ops like Operation Clean Sweep have busted these networks, arresting enforcers who collect rent with fists and fear. But dig deeper. The economic freedom fighters, that firebrand party, have been accused by the Democratic Alliance and others of dipping their hands in, using hijackings for patronage and votes. Though they deny it, the whispers persist. And the real enablers? Corrupt officials in ANC-run municipalities. In Johannesburg, with 500 to 600 hijacked buildings identified, many in Hillbrow, Berea, Joburg Park, the city's own audits show over 70,000 people trapped in 1,088 unlawfully occupied structures. That's 15,000 to 20,000 in the inner city alone, living in death traps. The South African Property Owners Association estimates syndicates pocket hundreds of millions in illegal rent, while the city hemorrhages tens of millions more in emergency responses to fires and collapses. Absentee landlords, often white South Africans living overseas after fleeing the crime wave, can't reclaim their properties because of the Prevention of Illegal Eviction Act, a well-intentioned law twisted into a shield for criminals, dragging evictions out for years while syndicates profit. It's heartbreaking. These white families, once pillars of our economy, now watch from afar as their heritage crumbles. Victims of a government that prioritizes politics over protection. Globally, this isn't unique, but in South Africa it's amplified by ANC failures. Look at Brazil's militias or India's land mafia, politicians colluding with criminals for kickbacks. Here, a 2018 Johannesburg audit flagged over 500 hijacked buildings tied to such corruption, echoing Transparency International's warnings that high corruption breeds organized crime in real estate. The UNODC notes illicit property deals launder dirty money, needing official complicity. In our case, it's ANC governance at fault, weak enforcement, disarray in billing and ownership records, and a refusal to tackle the root, massive housing shortages that create desperate tenants ripe for exploitation. The financial toll? Over 500 million rand annually in Joburg from unpaid services, plus millions in health crises, lost investment, urban blight. Legitimate businesses flee, tourism dies, and poverty entrenches. White minority investors who could revitalize these areas are scared off by the lawlessness, their capital flowing elsewhere while our cities decay. But it's the human stories that gut you. Imagine a young mother, perhaps a white South African down on her luck after her family's building was hijacked, now squatting in squalor because affordable housing vanished under ANC promises. Or the black families, migrants from rural areas paying blood money to syndicates for a sliver of floor space, only to wake to flames or gunshots. The 2023 Albert Street fire, over 77 dead in a usurped building, that's the face of this tragedy. Health hazards, human trafficking, drug dens, all thriving because ANC municipalities like Joburg's can't or won't act decisively. Their hijacked buildings project targets over 500 properties, but progress is glacial, hampered by corruption and red tape. Even successes, like the Johannesburg Social Housing Company's rehabs in Joburg Park, are drops in the ocean against the tide of neglect. So, how do we fight back? It starts with us, ordinary South Africans. Join neighborhood watches, attend IDP meetings, demand accountability, support groups like Outer that litigate against this mess, refuse to rent in these death traps, starving the syndicates, and push for real change. Empower units like JMPD's Property Hijacking Unit, trace illicit funds with a Financial Intelligence Center, provide alternative housing through human settlements. But above all, hold the ANC accountable. This crisis bloomed under their watch, from the late 90s explosion to today's hijacked buildings in cities across South Africa. It's not apartheid's ghost. It's living corruption and mismanagement, stealing your future. My friends, if this story has stirred something in you, the anger at injustice, the compassion for those suffering, the conviction that we deserve better, then let's turn it into action. Hit that like button if you're fired up for truth. Subscribe to join this community of courageous voices uncovering South Africa's real stories. Share this video far and wide to wake up our nation, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you seen a hijacked building? What's your take on the ANC's role? And if you can, become a channel member or send a super thanks donation. Your support keeps the lights on here, funds deeper investigations, and ensures more untold stories get heard. Together, we're not just watching, we're changing the narrative. Let's reclaim our cities, one truth at a time.